Hey, it's HPG. This is the podcast, Living My Breastless Life, the show where we hear about my journey to heal while battling cancer, being a wife, a toddler mom. We're going to cover all things real life. We learn what it really means to heal no matter what we go through. In Season 1, you will hear some of my story, along with episodes featuring my occasional co-host, Martha, and some badass guests. There will be humor, life hacks, tips and tricks, and further proof that truth can be stranger than fiction. During the visit with my plastic surgeon, we discussed all of the options. We talked about no reconstruction. We talked about doing expanders and having reconstruction done later. But we also talked about something I had never heard of before called immediate reconstruction. They could do implants right after the double mastectomy. So one surgeon, the oncology surgeon, and the plastic surgeon would work on me at the same time. It was about an 8-hour surgery. The healing time was longer. You would have more drains, but the outcomes for adjustment to loss of your breast were pretty good. And that's what I decided to do. The topic of nipple bearing came up. Again, one of those things you really never think about in your life until it's posed to you as a question. I decided I was done with those as well. I was going to have a double mastectomy with immediate reconstruction, one-stop shopping. I had no baseline of what pain and recovery looked like, but I felt like this was right for me. There was chaos and confusion in terms of scheduling my surgery. The surgery day went from the day after Labor Day to September 30th. As a lover of a plan, just in general, like on a random Tuesday, I love a plan. This back and forth created a lot of anxiety. There was more waiting, but also more time to plan. There was more time to worry if the cancer had spread to other parts of my body, perhaps by the minute. During my planning, I cut out a lot of unnecessary expenses from our budget. I calmed our entire life. In doing so, I learned I was not eligible for any more life insurance. I was thankful that I had a standalone policy that I had in advance. I will tell you, as a mom and a wife, this made the diagnosis very real to me. I planned and I planned and I planned. I made sticky notes for Piper so that Mark could read her things from her mama while I was going to be downstairs recovering in a recliner. I wasn't sure how long in terms of recovery it would be before I could make it upstairs for bedtime. I planned to be off for a month at work. I worked right up till 5 p.m. the day before my surgery. I remember in planning, I left Mar a Post-it note on our bathroom mirror that said, "Please don't forget to get your car inspected and pay the Target card." In retrospect, I probably could have left a little more romantic note. But if you know, you know. I was searching for control, things that I thought might get missed. In hindsight, I feel like I was just trying to make it to the surgery and busy myself as much as possible. On September 30th, I had a double mastectomy with immediate reconstruction. During that surgery, they took some lymph nodes from both sides after they completed what's called a sentinel lymph node biopsy. When I came to postoperatively, I remember wanting my lipstick. What a strange thing to want after you just had a surgery. I think this gave a lot of people who knew me well and were rooting for me and checking in on how I was doing a sense of comfort. If I want my lipstick on, it's probably a good sign. My mother-in-law had cared for Piper the night while we were in the hospital. Once I was discharged, my best friend came to care for me. From what little I remember about those first weeks of post-op, I remember us all making the best of it. Drains, fluid output, medications, appointments, no real bathing, and sleeping in a recliner was the bulk of my life for about 4 to 6 weeks. I read bedtime stories to Piper from my recliner, and Ma took her upstairs to put her to bed. I remember the first time Ma washed my hair. I cried tears of relief and had a little glimpse of normalcy, progress. During my recovery from this surgery, I continued seeing my therapist. I took some courses on emotional intelligence, discovered the Enneagram, and kept it moving in the discovery of who am I? During the recovery process, the results of the lymph node biopsy had came in. My nurse called and shared with me that some of the lymph nodes were positive for cancer, and that meant I would have to complete chemotherapy. I recall being incredibly depressed for 2 days. I really had no idea what my future held, but I knew that I was going to continue to heal either way. I felt like my body had failed me, but I was determined to give my soul and my mind a damn good shot for peace. Let's take a little break and get right back to the show. Feel free to let us know what topics you'd like to see covered in future episodes. Get in touch by heading over to According to HPG on Instagram, and be sure to tell your friends about the show. There was a time when I thought I could record, edit, and publish everything myself. Seeing as this left me very little time for anything else, I started to lose the standard of quality I was used to. Then I found Jay. In less than a day, the show went from so-so to amazing. Don't sacrifice quality for mediocrity. Check out the Podcast Mechanic and take your sound to the next level. Connect with Jay today at the Podcast Mechanic on Instagram. Let him know HPG sent you. And now, back to the show. Growth can be really slow, like seeing a baby every day and boom, they're visually larger. Or like hair. If you stare at it, you don't see the growth, then time for a haircut. Physical healing is like favoring a physical injury, removing it one day and realizing it doesn't hurt as much anymore. I think signs of growth and healing the whole self is kind of like finding something amazing that you've misplaced and not realizing how much you really needed it. Thank you for listening to this episode of Living My Breastless Life. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, please leave a review, download, and follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast. Go get your mammograms.